we have Poolbeg Pharma. Our next AIM-listed business has a market cap of around £39 million. It was spun out from Open Orphan last year and raised £25 million in the process. Poolbeg Pharma develops early-stage drugs to tackle infectious disease. Poolbeg's strategy is to develop multiple products quickly and cost-effectively. Whilst its initial assets were inherited from Open Orphan, it has been busy buying licenses for a development portfolio, hopefully full of potential. And joining us tonight to explain more about not just the strategy, but about the delivery of the strategy is Jeremy Skillington, CEO.
Donald, good evening.
Good evening to you, Jeremy. How are you tonight?
I'm doing very well. And yourself? It's a bit dark and rainy here in Dublin, but we carry on. I'm
so disappointed. I thought Dublin was just full of sunshine, like its people.
Never.
All right, Jeremy. I shall leave you to tell us more.
Super. Listen, thanks very much. And again, I appreciate the attendees tonight to as being here to allow me to give an update, a significant update, I think, on Poolbeg Pharma, the progress that we've made. I do remind people that, obviously the legal disclaimers is the first reminder, but secondly, we're a relatively new company spinning out of Open Orphan back in July of this year. We went public and we raised 25 million on the London Stock Exchange, significant shareholders in Schroders Investor Management and our chairman, Cathal Friel as well. And again, as a background or strategy, we're targeting infectious diseases exclusively. Again, it's a booming market right now for the reasons we're all aware. With COVID, pharma companies are looking to fill their pipelines with new programs and products. And that's where Poolbeg is an opportune time to be stepping in to provide them with that. And I'll go through the strategy later on. Our plan, we're a little bit different. We're capital light and rapid development. We plan to get early human clinical data very quickly and at a cost-effective manner. And that's what pharma craves. I think there's two things they crave: is human data and intellectual property, and we're building out on both. And again, early monetization is the strategy. We don't take these drugs all the way to commercialization. We let pharma companies do that, to take on the risk, to take on the cost. And as I say, we sit back and let them develop while we recoup investment in the form of milestones and royalties. So again, we've been building out our assets. As Donald said, we started with assets we inherited from Open Orphan and colleagues at hVivo, who Open Orphan had acquired. And again, we've been in licensing actively since, and I'll talk through our pipeline, our growing, burgeoning pipeline shortly. And again, it shows great promise in the future. I will say the execution, as Donald said, is critical on this, and it comes from very, very experienced management team who have, as a team, have combined to contribute over $1 billion in shareholder value from the various companies we've worked with over the last decade or so. And I'll talk a little bit about that. Progress since IPO, as I mentioned, is quite significant. Our lead program, POLB 001, is a small molecule immunomodulator for severe influenza, progressing well. We've moved it forward. We're in manufacturing right now. We'll have human clinical trials starting in the summer, and everything is on track to hit the milestone that we set at IPO. So that's going well. We did add a few new assets I'll speak to later on. POLB 002. This is an intranasal therapy for a broad range of viral infectious diseases. Again, very excited about this program. And again, we're all, as I say, front and center in viral infectious disease right now. So this is a very interesting and exciting asset. POLB 003. We in-licensed, it's a vaccine against a tropical, subtropical disease called melioidosis. There is nothing out there for that. So this is a real kind of a jewel in the crown that we could bring this forward, get early clinical data and partner with pharma. And we've started those early discussions with pharma. We all have terrific networks. And also we have an oral vaccine delivery platform we licensed recently to move forward, again, for good reasons. Everyone would like to avoid injections. So if there's a way of getting an oral vaccine, that's terrific. And this is a broad platform, multiple diseases. We also have an AI program that we're making good progress on from a contractual standpoint. And hopefully we'll be announcing something in that soon. Again, I'm very excited about that. As a former scientist, I'm very excited about this approach. And again, we're looking to in-license more assets. As Donald said, we're trying to build a pipeline that essentially has multiple shots on goal. So we'll be kind of moving these forward rapidly, generating data, partnering with pharma. And again, the multiple shots is essentially de-risking the program. So if, looking for the successes, obviously we'll be clever with our in-licensing. So the bottom here is the summary. We're creating value by generating early human data, which again, as I said, that's what pharma looks for. And then we proceed to out-license these programs to pharma and recoup our investment through milestones and royalties as they develop them further. And as you'll see later on, pharma is keen to bring programs forward. This is a very obvious slide. Infectious disease is front and center for everybody right now across vaccines, therapeutics, and diagnostics. And Poolbeg is playing in all of these three areas. The market for infectious diseases is expected to exceed 250 billion by 2025 across these three areas. And as I say, there's a lot of talk, a lot of discussion about what's next. We were ill prepared for the COVID-19 pandemic, but there's a lot of discussion, there's a lot of funding to be better prepared for future pandemics, and they will happen. Now we have a good understanding of how they happen. I think there's other obvious challenges as well. As I say, the UN see it as a clear and present danger, not just viral infections, but others. And I say we're planning to be ready and prepared for that as well. The challenges of actually a dual infection, there's discussions around getting flu and COVID at the same time. And obviously a big challenge for your immune system there. So there's grave concerns. And I think in the US, but globally, there is a pivot to let's fund interesting and exciting technologies to be better prepared in the future. And the White House talking about 65 billion to move programs forward. So obviously we'll be reaching out. We did raise 25 million, but there's a great appetite for gaining additional funding and financing in a non-dilutive fashion. There's a lot of grants and government funding out there we'll be pursuing. So this slide summarizes the company. As I say, we're capital light with early monetization, and that comes in the form of deals. And I've been doing deals for the last 20 years. So knowing my connections and contacts in pharma, that when we have very attractive human data, then we'll have significant and serious discussions about partnering. So again, it's multiple assets, early human data, low development costs in the 4 to 5 million range to get that human data, and then getting these results really quickly. And I say pharma like to get these assets early so then they can shape the development programs as they move forward. They're not relying on our phase 2 or phase 3 data. They do prefer to move these forward themselves. And I think a case in point is the last company I worked with, Inflazome, where we were founded in 2016. We raised 55 million in venture financing capital, so privately backed VCs, and we were acquired by Roche Pharmaceuticals in 2020. 55 million investment. We got an initial upfront of 380 million with downstream milestones to come as development progresses. So that's the key aspect here. Roche have taken this on board. They're funding developments. They're putting their stamp on it from a development standpoint and moving that forward in multiple diseases. And the key thing here from an Inflazome standpoint is that we completed phase 1 and we had data in one patient, positive data, I should say, which obviously is very important here. So that was enough for Roche to acquire the company to move the programs forward. And this is a small molecule deal for inflammatory diseases. And again, it parallels with our lead program here with severe influenza that I'll discuss. So again, the goal is to move forward 5 or 6 different assets and become cash generative really quickly. And that's through partnering, through deals with pharma. And as you see later on, and I'll reiterate, pharma are very keen and eager to bring in external technology, external innovation to complement their own internal activities and their research and development activities. So low cost, early data, and we partner with pharma. That's the Poolbeg strategy. I'm very proud of this slide because it shows the progress that we've made in our short 6 months since IPO. What you see in blue here is what we brought in, what we inherited at the outset. And what we have in green is what we've in-licensed since then. So POLB 001, our small molecule for severe influenza. As I mentioned, that's ready to go into the clinic this year to test in a challenge study and get human data for to demonstrate the anti-inflammatory effect of this program. POLB 002, I mentioned a recent deal we did. That's late preclinical. And we're building our team, our activities around that to move that forward rapidly. This is primed to get into early human challenge studies in the viral setting. And I should mention our colleagues at Open Orphan and hVIVO run these studies regularly and are very successful at that for those who share investors with Open Orphan and Poolbeg. 003, as I mentioned, melioidosis vaccine, very exciting, very, no competition out there right now, but a very serious disease that needs help. So again, we've been very selective in the programs that we've brought in. And again, we see great potential to move these forward. I will highlight what we have here as a phase 2, let's say, is this monetization zone. This is where we see getting deals done with pharma and generating revenue from the deals, whether it's upfront and milestones combined. So this is how we'll be cash generative very quickly. We're not going to take on the risk and cost of moving these programs forward all the way to commercializations ourselves. We're going to remain, as I say, capital light. We're going to remain very lean and move these programs forward rapidly. So again, very excited about the slide and the progress myself and the team have made. I have a terrific team behind me here. Other programs to mention, the AI, I won't touch upon that today just for time reasons, but as I say, it's a very exciting program to identify new targets and new pathways that are active in infectious diseases that then we can drug and inhibit disease progressions. And a vaccine discovery platform where we can identify what part of a virus or that the immune system recognizes, and then we can generate vaccines from that. So very clever technology, very interesting science. And as I said, we're not stopping there, we're looking for other assets to bring in, and we're in multiple parallel discussions, doing diligence on a number of assets, so building the pipeline, again, with the goal to move forward rapidly from there. So I will spend a little bit of time just on each of these programs, just to give a little bit more color. And you'll see common threads coming through. I think for this first one is, the key point is from our IPO, we had a number of statements of here's what we're going to do. And I think importantly, we've been successful in achieving those to date. So this is a small molecule P38 inhibitor repositioned. It was in the clinic previously with a goal to treat rheumatoid arthritis. It wasn't ultimately successful. It was the wrong indication for that. But the team at hVIVO identified severe influenza as being an important target, important disease that this program could hit and target and benefit patients from. They filed patents that go out to 2038. So again, very important that we're protected in that space. This is a molecule we in-licensed. We've got worldwide use for all human uses. We do estimate peak sales in the 275 million range for 1 year. So as you see, pharma do tend to pay a lot of money because they see this as a long-term therapy that they can recoup their investment in a deal over many years. And we're looking beyond severe influenza. There's potential to expand beyond severe influenza. And obviously, I won't talk about that for patent reasons, but we've got good insights into what other diseases to pursue. So one drug treating multiple diseases, again, something that pharma likes. Progress-wise, we have manufacturing and formulation ongoing. Clinical trial is all set up, ready to go, beginning of June of this year. So again, we're hitting our timelines as we stated. So making good progress in that space. A reminder about influenza, maybe people have forgotten with all of what's gone on, but in normal years, 1 in 8 people globally are infected by influenza. 5 to 10 million are hospitalized, and there's 500,000 deaths. And I think there's been a demand on people now that pharma should improve these numbers, that they've done well with COVID-19 vaccines. So let's do the same for influenza. So we're moving to that space, treating the sickest patients and bringing them back from the edge, essentially. Because when the virus triggers the immune system, it's the immune system causes damage. So we're going to block that from happening. Our next program, you can see, is quite complementary. It's also in the respiratory virus space, very different disease, though this is an RNA-based immunotherapy. So again, hedging ourselves here with not putting all our eggs in the small molecule basket. So a different approach, very novel approach. We recently, just last month, did an exclusive license to this dual action immunotherapy. I think what's important here from a dual action standpoint is that it's an intranasal injection. It triggers your immune cells in your nose to be ready for a viral challenge, but it also blocks viral replication. So it's kind of a 1-2 punch, essentially. So a very unique approach to this therapy. So again, late preclinical, a lot of data, a lot of positive data. So building the team together to get that moving forward from a manufacturing standpoint and getting our clinical strategy in place. So again, very exciting. So this is a watch this space, very interesting approach. Again, overall respiratory viral infections are numerous. 5 to 20% of the population get some kind of viral infection every year. 3 million deaths, and it's a top 5 cause of global deaths. So again, across all different respiratory viruses. So we've got a therapy for that, both a prophylactic before you get the disease and a therapeutic when you do have it. So again, very exciting approach. POLB 003 is a vaccine against melioidosis. Again, I mentioned this is it's a late preclinical, terrific amount of work that the team at University College Dublin near us here have done over the last number of years. Wellcome Trust funded, so they've actually brought this forward a lot themselves. They're in discussions around good GMP manufacturing, critical to get clinical trials going. So we're partnering with them to move that forward at pace as well. And this is a very unheard of disease. It has significant issues in tropical, subtropical countries. I think the challenging point here is there's 165,000 cases annually and 54% fatality. So there's nothing out there for this particular disease. And so we plan to be the first on the market for something like this. So looking forward to bringing this forward, as I say, significant unmet need. It should be worth pointing out, have an agreement with UCD about other programs they have internally that are earlier. We can have access to those if following diligence, they excite us. I will talk about a recent deal again. Last month, you can see we've been very active ourselves on the deal front. An oral vaccine delivery platform. I mentioned earlier, we've, many people are, getting the injections in the arms, which is good. That itself creates challenges when it comes to generating the correct immunity. So that gives us systemic immunity, but a lot of times pathogens enter through, the nose or the gut, and you want to generate mucosal immunity. And this is where oral vaccines come into play. So they're triggering mucosal immunity in your gut. So if you get an infection in your gut and elsewhere, they're protected. So we've got an interesting technology here. If you ingest any kind of vaccine component, your stomach acids and enzymes will degrade it. Well, this is a really interesting technology that is able to bypass the stomach, get it into the gut, and then disperse and activate that mucosal immunity. So this, again, is a platform across many different diseases. So we're working with colleagues in NanoBio to bring this program forward ourselves, and can be complementary with our own vaccine delivery platform. So some interesting and exciting work to do here. And I say the benefits, as I mentioned, driving mucosal immunity rather than systemic, again, has benefits. Easier distribution. It doesn't have to have a cold chain. I think part of the issues with COVID-19 vaccines, for example, is getting into tropical and subtropical countries with a cold chain. But this is just a pill, so it travels a lot easier. And of course, overcoming needle phobia. So again, a lot of exciting programs in our pipeline, which we're building upon. And the point I want to move back to that I mentioned earlier on is pharma. And pharma and the desire to fill their pipeline both internally through the activity of their scientists in the labs, but also externally. They look for innovation externally to the company and try and complement their own internal disease strategies. And this slide, I think, is quite interesting. If you look from the left to the right, the dark blue at the bottom of the slides, for example, is where these are internally developed and sourced and progressed programs. And everything above that dark blue is what they've brought in externally, whether it's acquired or co-developed or joint ventures or in-license. So you can see over time that pharma are looking more and more externally to bring in programs. And that's where companies like Poolbeg can come in and provide them with a conveyor belt of assets that then pharma brings in and develops further. So again, very excited about the shift. As I say, we're fortunate in the times that we live in that this is a pivot that pharma are doing. They're looking externally for innovation, but also, as I say, to be in infectious diseases, the timing couldn't be better for a company like Poolbeg to be advancing programs. And I want to highlight at the bottom here the types and size of deals that pharmas do. So you can see on the left, Reviral, this is a 120 million deal for RSV, a space that we play in. Merck acquiring Oncommune for a COVID-19 program for 425 million upfront. And then Pfizer doing a deal around Lyme disease for 130 million upfront, and just announced last week that they're progressing into phase 3. So this is something they brought in that Valneva developed early, and Pfizer bring this forward. And I'm sure as they progress, Valneva generates that 188 million downstream milestones as progression continues. I do want to highlight a comparator company, we like to say. Evotec are a German company who, similar to Poolbeg, started in the CRO world. They did lots of deals with pharmas developing programs, and decided to get clever in that. Let's start the programs ourselves, and then partner with pharma. And this is what they've been doing for the last several years. And you can see on the right the trajectory of their stock price as they progressed over the last 5 years. So significant increase as they progressed programs and partnered with pharma. And you can see one example of a deal on the bottom, doing a deal with Takeda, where they get significant upfronts and 160 million milestones downstream. So it's a collaboration. And typically in these collaborations, pharma will pay for the funding and develop and bring it forward. And then upon success, will pay back Evotec. So this is how they're going to make their money long-term. So if you see a company like Poolbeg, and as I say, relatively new to the space, IPOing in July last year, we can anticipate similar trajectory over the coming months and years as we build the company and progress our programs and partner with pharma. So we like to compare ourselves to Evotec as a goal. That's something we can strive to achieve over the coming years as we progress our programs internally and partner. So my last slide here, a summary slide, just to remind the attendees tonight, infectious diseases is expected to grow rapidly in revenues from vaccines, therapeutics, and diagnostics over the next few years to 250 billion. And Poolbeg plans to have a part to play in that as we progress our programs. We do remind people capital multiple shots on goals clinical strategy. we're very cautious and careful with our spend. We're obviously want to stretch it as far as we can. So we negotiate pretty hard and heavy with our contract research groups. Again, expanding our pipeline, infectious diseases, our focus. We've looked at well over 50 to 60 programs about potentially in-licensing, and we'll only pick what we see as strategically advantageous to Poolbeg, but has exciting science behind it, and of course a market and a partner ability. So that's where we're striving for. And again, I remind people of the team and the successes we've had in the past with our various companies in the last 5 to 6 years, and we know how to execute. So again, as I wrap up, our plan is to be a leading infectious disease company. We'll do this by advancing our programs and partnering with pharma. And as I say, have a multiple shots on goal approach and be a conveyor belt for partnering. So again, appreciate your time this evening, and happy to take questions, Donald, what you may have.
Okay, Jeremy, that was fascinating. Thank you very much indeed. And I like the new slide pack. It's really terrific. Thank you.
Thank you too. Yeah, we've made some good progress. It's nice to share this progress.
I agreed. So POLB 123 oral vaccine delivery platform, AI-powered drug discovery program, and vaccine discovery platform. My goodness. Where do you put your capex first? You've got your 25 million. Do you have a plan as to how you're going to divide that and allocate your capital?
I think what's fortunate, we've been clever with the kind of, let's say, staggering. POLB 001 is the lead program. As I say, we're investing right now in manufacturing, which is critical, getting clinical trials in place. And what we expect is by the end of the year, Q4, we'll have that key clinical trial data, how this compound behaves in humans in an inflammatory, in a challenge model. That will tell us a lot about the direction to take. And that's a data set we can go to pharma with. And I think that's the key thing. We go to pharma saying, we've got a drug, we've got a molecule, we're striving for severe influenza. There's potential for other diseases that we're pursuing as well. But it's safe and effective.
So POLB 001 might be your best chance of getting some early revenues, do you think?
Yes, I think there's, the discussions with pharma will happen by the end of the year. And then we'll get a read or an appetite into, taking this forward. I mentioned one of the strengths will be the human data that we generate in the challenge study. And we've got a very exciting clinical trial designed for that. And then the intellectual property, the IP that's filed behind that, protecting the asset in severe influenza. I think that'll be, as I say, very beneficial for pharma when they see that. So yeah, it could be, but pharma are, as I say, looking for infectious disease assets, and we'll have a very attractive data set for them by the end of the year.
Could you shine a light on your processes? Are you hiring a small core team aligned to each of the different licenses and assets that you have?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. I mean, part of the capital light approach is leveraging external expertise. So we've got a network of outsourcing. We've got a network of consultants who, and the beauty of this is that you can bring them in and drop them out as you need them. So you don't need to have that, fully burdened, FTE cost of somebody in your office who may not have the expertise you need. And I'll give an example for, let's say, manufacturing. We have a CMC expert who kind of comes in, guides the process, and then drops back out as we don't need them. And I think it's a clever approach. It's actually a well-worn approach in the industry, because you don't need a manufacturing expert for 12 months.
Consultants are one thing, but you do need a core team who know what's going on and a continuity. So
absolutely.
Talk us through what happens inside Poolbeg rather than outside Poolbeg.
I like to describe us as we're professional managers. We're managing this external team of experts. Now, we all have knowledge ourselves internally. We've got a team of project managers to move this forward who are experienced in the space. But as I say, we have chief medical officer on contract again, who's monitoring and analyzing the clinical development of the lead programs. But as I said, we have an excellent team internally that we can leverage in to move the programs forward. And I think the proof of the pudding is, Donald, in that we're hitting our timelines that we stated at IPO last year. So we've been quite effective in driving the programs forward.
Great. Now, I do apologize to the person whose name I can't find, but there are so many questions for you tonight, Jeremy.
Good.
20 questions. So I'm plowing through all those 20 questions and I've lost the person's name, so I apologize to them. How much per asset do we have to spend?
Yeah, we've kind of stated from the outset, we're planning 4 or 5 million per. And to do that, I mean, the manufacturing costs, formulation costs, clinical trial costs. Now, the clinical trial are these early human studies. They're actually quite manageable from a clinical standpoint. So, obviously, for confidentiality purposes, I don't talk about specifics that are in contracts, but we're kind of tough in negotiation to get costs down. So I think 4 to 5 million will have a really attractive, nice data set. We do anticipate some may go earlier than that, but we do want to put a cap of 4 to 5 million on that we don't want to go over, because we generate an attractive data set for that amount of money. And then we don't want to take the risk. We want pharma to take the risk from there and obviously fund development beyond that timeline that, as I say, the early human data we've mentioned.
Okay. Now, apart from Evotech, the capital light model is quite untried, if not untested. Don't get cross with me. But and 12 to 18 months sounds quite ambitious in terms of a timeline.
Yep.
How would you react to that?
I mean, there are certain things in drug development that there are, I wouldn't call them bottlenecks, there's kind of essential steps. But like manufacturing, for example, may take up to 6 months, but that we plan ahead. We plan ahead to kind of have everything lined. You should see our Gantt charts, Donald. They're kind of quite complex, but everything is kind of in line and moving things forward. But as I say, we're kind of, for every program, for every external bid, let's say, like we got to get 3 bids in and then we kind of negotiate those. So we're very careful with that, but it's doable. I mean, as you said, like from 12 months from the IPO, we'll actually be in humans with our lead program. So it's doable. So
there's lots of parallel process taking place.
Oh, without question. We're all exhausted, but
You're all exhausted. Good. Carl will be pleased.
Yeah, absolutely. But
I think he likes exhausted staff.
It's fun. It's fun and challenging. It's one of those things. You're satisfied with your day's work.
Right. It was Simon Peace. I can name check Simon. Thank you, Simon, for your question.
Very good.
Colm Woolley. Let me take the second part of your question. Would management consider more regular updates so that the market might remain excited about the stock, given that we're operating in such a buzz sector? He thinks you're not putting out enough RNSs, but I feel like telling Colm that you've just taken on 3 licenses.
Exactly, exactly, and there's more coming.
I even saw them on the slide.
Yep.
Colm wants more, I think.
Absolutely, without question. There's no bottom limit. I mean, as I say, we'll kind of announce we have been very active. There's much more going on in the background. So yes, I mean, we'll give our updates as we have them. We don't want to be that one of those companies that gives out just kind of spurious kind of RNSs. Let's keep them the content good. But in the next few months, absolutely, there's a lot of news flow to come in the next few months. And again, we feel now after 6 months, we've kind of hit stride. We've got some good deals in, and we're going to kind of hit stride further. And now it's taking the baton and running with it.
Right. So the flu vaccine might be the number one. POLB 001 might be the first.
001, the lead program. Yeah, I mean, as I said, we'll have human data on that soon.
Do you have another favorite child? Is there another one that really stands out for you? Because they all seem very interesting to me.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't hear Donald.
Do you have another favorite child? Which of them do you think might be good?
You should know, Donald. They're all my favorite children. I think everyone has a slightly different approach, and I think that again from a Poolbeg standpoint and a de-risking standpoint, I think we're taking the right approach here to hedge our bets, let's say. But each one of them alone, could be quite important and lucrative, from a deal standpoint. But as I say, we'll take these forward. I didn't get an answer on that, unfortunately. I did try, though. The oral vaccine delivery platform, that to me sounds really interesting. Yeah.
What is its potential? Tell us a little bit about its potential.
I mean, what we're looking at right now is a number of programs. I mean, you think about kind of, enteric bugs, let's say, activating mucosal immunity is a critical thing. Anything like E. coli, there's a lot of these diseases that happen that, you could have a vaccine for, but taking it as a pill format. I mean, can you imagine? It's just, distributes all over the world as a pill rather than injectable. You don't need a cold chain. So it's a case of getting your antigen in there to trigger your immune system, an adjuvant, which is, which actually stimulates the immune response, and then protecting it from the stomach. It's a very interesting technology. And if it works, it can go anywhere. It's just, it's one of these kind of gold mines, but it's, we're pushing it forward with a colleague at Anabio who've done this. They've demonstrated it in other programs, other diseases, that they can protect a drug from the stomach and get it through to the other side. So we're thinking, if we can do that with vaccines, then we're onto something.
Jeremy, it sounds fascinating. Now, don't be offended, but 2 different people have asked, Spark, JC, and one other have said, why don't you buy some shares? Now, I have to ask CEOs this regularly in the go.
It's a great question. We've been, part of it, right? Part of the challenge has been that I've been an insider all the way along.
That's one answer. That's always one answer, indeed.
But we have to figure out how to do that. I completely agree. I mean, it doesn't look good. I completely agree, but you have to figure out, because I'll always be an insider, so there has to be some solution. So, I'll be talking to the lawyers to see what they, and our nomads, what's the best way to approach this? But we will have to come to a solution. I completely agree.
Very quick answer. NASDAQ. Any still?
It's on the cards. It's on the cards. As I say, right now we're focused on building a pipeline, and so when you have an attractive pipeline, you go to NASDAQ with that discussion. So it's on the cards without question. There's Cathal has talked about that numerous times, and it's definitely let's build a pipeline, make it attractive, and then take it stateside to grow and expand.
Yes, it's all about delivery at the end of the day.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.